Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, winners and losers in the Senate race. Also, the V team takes a look at major indictments. And the sophisticates are just so embarrassed.
You expecting somebody?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Roy Moore. He's coming, baby. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V team. Welcome all.
Good morning.
Hello.
We have a new member, yeah.
Chandler here.
Yeah, wow. Exciting, huh?
Oh, it's very exciting. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah. Susan still has a sore throat, so she was not able to be here, Jack, and there's no excuse for you and me.
No, there's not.
Roy Moore had a crushing victory. I actually felt sorry for Luther Strange. I mean, Jack, 10-point win. That's big, big stuff.
It is very big. I predicted about 8. Some polls predicted that it was tightening up, and some were as many as 17 points for Roy Moore. But it was a good old-fashioned butt whooping. Yeah. And like I said when we were talking before the show, I think Roy Moore ran a very positive campaign, despite having all those millions spent trashing him by the Washington insiders, and he prevailed. It was a very impressive win.
Well, we've always said, Chandler, when Roy Moore runs, his people show up, and they really did, didn't they?
Oh, they definitely did. I also really think that Luther's ads are one of the things that really killed him in the campaign. But I did appreciate that Roy Moore kept it very positive. He kept it light. He promoted everything he needed to. So I was very impressed with him, and I think we're all, not shocked that he won. So
she brings up a good point, Beth. I mean, negative ads drive people away from the polls, and these were brutal.
Right, and two things that I think they did right. One is Roy Moore put Kayla Moore, his wife, in a lot of his ads, and she's a beautiful woman. She does well on camera, and so it really kind of brought that whole family values thing home. But the second thing is I think those negative ads coming from Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans in D.C., I think they shot Luther in the foot. They didn't tell anybody who he is or what he values. And, I mean, look, the same thing happened with John Ossoff in Georgia back in September. Big money comes in from out of state, and it just backfires sometimes.
I mean, Jack, we're known as the make-me state.
True.
And we don't like folks coming down here, even if it's a popular president. I mean, the President Trump, it couldn't be more popular in Alabama.
True.
But it just didn't move the needle much.
It didn't move the needle much. I think it was what Beth said, as much of a reaction and a negative reaction to Mitch McConnell spending all that money trashing Roy Moore when they really could have done a better job trying to make Luther look. He's not a bad guy. He's a family guy. He's got an attractive wife. He has a lot of friends, and it really didn't portray him in the proper light that it should have.
But it was poised as Roy Moore, the outsider. I mean, even though he's been at it 40 years, he still comes across, Beth, as an outsider.
Well, at least he's not a D.C. lobbyist like Luther Strange. I mean, but even if they tried, I'm thinking through it, putting my consultant hat on and thinking if I were trying to sell Luther Strange to people, what's the message I would use? His stunning record as Attorney General? No, he recused himself from everything of any value and lied about the Bentley investigation. So, what is the record that you sell Luther Strange on that would get people to say, now that's somebody I could send to Washington. I just don't know what that'd be.
Yeah, and I mean, and Chandler, that's one of the things we've seen. People trust Roy Moore. They seem to have not trusted Luther Strange, and trust is a big deal.
Definitely not. And I think, like she said, he really did shoot himself in the foot with this campaign. I think if maybe he had gone in a different direction, he could have prevailed a little bit better, but no.
It's embarrassing, Jack, really, for Luther. But the big loser is, of course, Luther Strange. I guess he'll go back to lobbying, Jack?
I think he'll land on his feet.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll
Well,
have to
But,
worry.
and remember, too, we said back when this started, no appointed U.S. senator from Alabama has ever been reelected in their own right, and it holds true.
And this is the South. The past is not even the past, right?
We're still there.
We're still
Somebody
there.
pointed out something that said we ought to enact a law that says if you're appointed by a governor to an elective office, you'll only be able to finish
serve
out that term and not be able to run for that office for 2 terms.
Chandler, does that make sense to you?
Oh, that definitely does. I agree.
Well,
I'd wonder the constitutionality of it, though.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't
Maybe
know.
so, yeah.
I mean, I think you could do it. It's an interesting concept. The winner, I think, here is the more voters, the people that are hardcore conservatives. But Beth, that brings up the issue: can Doug Jones go head-to-head with Roy Moore and win?
I think he can put up a fight. I will be surprised if he pulls out a victory on Election Day because it is Alabama and every odd is against us in those ways. But I think that Doug, if somebody can beat Roy Moore, Doug Jones is the man to do it. I have so much respect for him. I think he's a great candidate. And I think if we have a shot at winning, we'll do it with Doug.
I mean, Chandler, we don't have a single statewide elected Republican. It just seems like
Oh, it's a Democrat.
We got
all kinds of Republicans around here.
Yeah, we got
tripping over them
We're
left and right in
lousy with
Montgomery.
Republicans, right?
Right.
But when you talk to your friends and family, even here in Montgomery, there's so few people that are voting Democrat these days.
Of course, and I know my family, all Republican. So I know definitely those families and people like that are the reason that Roy Moore made it. But and I agree with her again, like she said. I have a lot of respect for Doug Jones, and I really hope he does well. But as we saw in this last election, Roy Moore's voters show up, so we'll just have to see.
But, I mean, the one thing, though, to keep in mind is that Roy's people tap out, and a lot of moderate business Republicans may swing over to Doug.
Well,
Good
that's a good
Yeah.
point, Jack. Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, I think a lot of Republicans, especially the money crowd, will not support some of the establishment folks.
Oh, God,
Won't
they
support
hate him.
They don't like Roy Moore. They won't vote for him. But there are not enough of them. I mean, when you match Bubba against the elitists in Alabama, Bubba's going to win every time. And
It's going to be a race of bases, I
That's
think, is
right.
what it's going to come down to. And
Well, you know what? I mean, some people were saying a wife of a staffer with President Trump said that for the first time in her life, she was ashamed to be from Alabama. Well, get used to it, honey. This is Alabama. It's always been Alabama. And look.
that's a little insulting, too. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. If this is what a fair and open election is
Right.
what disgusts
She's a
you about
bad sport,
Alabama.
sore loser.
Yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
somewhere else. You're welcome to move to Massachusetts and see how that works out
Well,
for you.
yeah, no kidding.
With me is when there's at least hundreds of thousands of church-going Alabamians that agree with Roy Moore, whether you like it or not. He just says what they believe out
Right.
loud. But we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis.
I'm John Merrill. As your Secretary of State, I want to encourage each and every eligible U.S. citizen that's a resident of Alabama to be registered to vote and to obtain a government-issued ID. It's important for your information to be updated as well. Please contact your local board of registrars or download the mobile app at Vote for Alabama so you'll be prepared to vote on December the 12th. We'll see you at the poll.
Lawson's Aesthetics and Med Spa is a one-of-a-kind medical spa offering a portfolio of rejuvenation services and advanced technologies to enable you to feel younger and look fabulous without the need for invasive surgery. Owned and operated by licensed physician Dr. Heather Lawson, the Lawson's Aesthetics and Med Spa offers advanced therapies for women and men to revitalize body and mind. Discover what you and Lawson's Aesthetics and Med Spa can accomplish together. It's your life. Live well, live strong, and live beautiful.
Our criminal justice system, when it goes wrong, can go wrong horrendously.
Should the prosecutors be in jail? Yes, they should be in jail.
That's mind-boggling, but we know she's lying.
The government spared no resources.
One purpose here, and that was to keep that man from being the governor of the state of Alabama.
No doubt in my mind that Don Siegelman was rogue.
They had to get rid of him because they couldn't beat him fair and square.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Beth, it's a very heated issue. The president's brought it up, Mo Brooks has brought it up. The idea that athletes are taking a knee in protest to the racial discrimination, the problems we're having in the nation with police violence, gang, all this violence that's going on. But people have taken a point to point out that they should stand for the national anthem and not kneel. It's a very touchy subject because people want you to respect the flag, but there's also a freedom of speech issue here.
Right, and I just think that people would love for everybody to respect the flag, but I'm sure also all of our brothers and sisters would love to live in a country where they don't have to worry about getting beat by the police or getting incarcerated at a higher rate than their neighbors. And so, where our school systems are adequate. So this whole thing, this should you stand or kneel during the anthem thing, it's all just a distraction from talking about what the actual issues are, which is that we do still have systemic racism in America that needs to be addressed. And this is just a way to get around it, saying you have to stand for the flag. It's just, you can't legislate that, Mo. Go sit down.
Well, and I think, Chandler, one of the things that we've seen is that this has really caught on. And not only are athletes doing it nationally, high schools are doing it. We see it everywhere.
Oh, definitely. We're seeing it all across the country. And I'm all for respecting the flag. I'm all for respecting troops, but there does come a free speech is one of the biggest aspects of it. So I'm all for people taking their knees, doing what they need to do, expressing themselves how they feel they need to.
I tend to have to agree with that, but I do understand people who, Jack, say stand up or just get out of the stadium.
I would say don't come out of the tunnel until the national anthem is over. I know the Department of Defense put money behind the National Football League to encourage owners to bring them out to show patriotism that would encourage people to be patriotic. That's ridiculous. Keep the federal money out and keep the guys in the tunnel.
That's right, Beth. It was a commercial.
It was, and I saw that, and I
forgot about that.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, because these days, you have to track back everything you see on Facebook. You can't just take things as a grain of salt. But I read that the only reason why they started coming out for the national anthem was because they got paid to. So, at that point, if the government started using the NFL for political speech as it is, then it's kind of this weird gray area of, well, if it's okay when it's for what you're doing, then you're good with it. But if it's not okay when you're not okay with it, it's this weird.
The average football fan doesn't give a damn what these guys think politically. We want them to go out there and bash each other and win games or lose games.
And I think that's true. I do. I agree. I also have to bring up the fact, though, except for me and Jack, they're too young to remember it, but when those athletes raised their fist, it caused,
the Olympics.
At the Olympics, it did mean something. And I remember Stevie Wonder came out and he won a Grammy, and he accepted it in the name of Nelson Mandela. And nobody ever, basically people didn't know who Nelson Mandela was.
Right.
And after that, and I don't disagree with you, Jack, but after that it brought attention to it. So I guess that's where it's coming from. Free speech needs attention.
Okay.
Definitely.
I don't disagree with you,
I
Jack.
know. And I don't give a damn about Nelson Mandela either. So, But that's just me.
I'm not going to play Sun City, I can tell you that.
I look at it as, Mo Brooks is coming in trying to legislate this, and he's got a history of trying to legislate things that just aren't the privy of legislation. It's not something, you can't compel someone to stand up during the national anthem.
Well,
that's a little,
he's trying to cut off the money. It's federal money. It's our money, taxpayer
right, but it's
money.
still viewpoint censorship at that point. And so now you've got this whole other constitutional issues to factor in.
Well, we can beat this one to death. Most of us would agree we want respect for the flag, but there's also a free speech issue here. Speaking of freedom, Mickey Hammond, Representative Mickey Hammond out of Decatur, pled guilty this past week to using his campaign funds, Chandler. Putting his money in his personal account. That's kind of like a no-no.
Doesn't surprise me at all. We live in Alabama. Corruption that's one of our best things. So, I'm really not shocked that it happened.
Beth, we could export our ideas on corruption, couldn't we?
We could. If we could commodify this stuff, we might not have the budget crisis that we're having. But, Mickey Hammond, Mike Hubbard, Robert Bentley, the list goes on. You've got Barry Moore, who was, acquitted, but then who was it, Greg Wren? How many lawmakers is this that have either Oliver Robinson, that have either stepped down or been removed from office?
Let me tell you, I think if John Merrill has begun looking at campaign finance reports of these senators and representatives who report one thing and their contributors report another, and there are discrepancies, and a hell of a lot of them are spending money paying themselves back for loans that they never loaned their campaign. They're living out of their campaign accounts, going to bowl games, buying football tickets.
Didn't Tom Whatley go to a national championship out of his campaign account at one point?
That's the rumor.
Well, the thing is, and like you point out, John Merrill, to his credit, the Secretary of State has said, I'm looking at every one of these. And Chandler, that's been the problem. Nobody ever paid attention. We did, but we were just a small outfit. We need to know what's going on, don't we?
Oh, of course we do, definitely. I think we should take a much closer look into it, but...
Well, and that's really what the Ethics Commission ought to be doing, not the Secretary of State.
Definitely.
But they are non-existent.
You can't, they've got brothels in Bangkok where they've got the owner has more ethical.
But this is all electronic now. You can write a computer program to do it for you. They've got software that'll do this.
Oh, wow.
There's no excuse.
Took the fun out of it.
Well, I'm saying there's no excuse to not have checks and balances on it.
Okay.
Right.
I never know.
Yeah.
All right. Good.
So let's just get an Excel sheet that'll tell us if it's right or wrong.
I like it. You're working on some of that, aren't you?
I am working on some of that right now. It's taking a lot of my time up, but it's
worthwhile.
Very worthwhile.
Absolutely. Well, you're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
The Energy Institute of Alabama promotes reliable, affordable, and clean energy to help grow our economy, create high-paying jobs, and build public support for Alabama's energy industry. Access to clean, affordable energy continues to be an issue of vital importance in the halls of government and around the kitchen tables across our nation. The Energy Institute of Alabama is the best source of energy industry information and how it affects households across the state, from convenient energy production to alternative fuels to solar power and beyond.
back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. This Oliver Robinson guilty plea to accepting bribes, this public corruption case has now exploded, Beth, with top-tier executives from two of the premier firms in all the state.
Right, yeah, we've got 2 from Balch and Bingham, and then 1 from, was it Drummond
Drummond
Cole?
Cole, yeah.
That was indicted this past Thursday. And, you know, I'm just wondering now, are they going to let these guys start flipping up the ladder, or is this as high as they're going to take it? But I'm glad to see that they're prosecuting on both sides of the bribery charge, because they didn't do that in the Mike Hubbard cases. They just prosecuted him.
Right, Jack, it was, they received a thing of value. They got him for that, soliciting a thing of value, but they never got anybody for giving him anything.
Right.
But this thing right here, I mean, Balch, that, you know, Drummond, I mean, that's huge.
They're
that
big
could go
Alabama
everywhere.
firms, and always been very well respected. And we'll see how it washes out, but it looks pretty dadgum serious.
Well,
I wouldn't want the feds on me for that.
No. And Chandler, we keep hearing, I mean, this is a federal investigation, but we keep hearing that the state is, we know they're also carrying an investigation. So this could ripple through the state legislature, the Senate, everywhere, couldn't it?
Oh, definitely. It could affect a lot of things. I'm looking forward, though, to seeing how everything plays out with it, though.
Well, I mean, the thing is, we got to stay on top of corruption, don't we, Beth?
We do, and you know, and just when you start thinking about what it was that happened here, you had basically a coal company that didn't want to conform to EPA standards, so they started moving a bunch of money around to get people to say, look, there's no problem here, there's no pollution here, where the grounds in a lot of these parts of Birmingham are dangerously toxic for families.
They had to remove
layers
of the soil. I mean, and here's Oliver Robinson, a African-American legislator from that area, and he's getting money, allegedly, from Drummond, from
Well, he
Balch
took a
Bingham.
plea, so I think we know he got some money.
No, he did. That's right. He took the money. You're right. And it took money from these guys, supposedly to convince these other black folks in his community not to sign on. Right, Jack?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of the deal.
I don't know how it all works from a legal standpoint, but he basically was paid, according to allegations, to suppress the public outrage
opinion.
about it, pretty much, and to tell his constituents, this ain't no big deal, we got it handled, just don't sign this petition, everything will be okay.
And it's toxic levels of like lead and mercury, right? All these kind of like hard metals that are in the soil. And this is the same dirt that like your kids are playing in outside. And you know, there's so many scientific studies that show, for the people that believe in science, that this leads to autism, or at least to whatever other, you know, Alzheimer's, dementia, all this stuff down the road. And it's shameful.
I mean, you know, look, not only will Oliver Robinson do time, probably these other people do, but who gives, Chandler, who gives these children back their health if it costs them? Who gives the mothers and fathers of these poor families their health back? Who do we turn to?
I really think this is something we need to turn to the courts for this, and it really demands justice. It's unfair to these children. It's unfair to the families. So I hope something gets done about this rather quickly.
Beth,
Right.
I mean, that's our only recourse, right?
It is, and that's usually why we have things like the EPA, is so that these companies can't sell families down the river, because for a lot of them, it's cheaper to just pay the fine and move on than it is to actually regulate their outputs and do right by the families in the communities that they serve. It's shameful.
Before we turn into a full-blown bleeding heart show here, Jack.
Now, don't turn to me about the environment. I'm kind of an environmentalist, but I mean, look what happened in Anniston. You remember that?
Yeah, you cannot have a garden in your backyard in Anniston.
I mean, that was really, really bad, and there was a big cover-up going on over there.
I mean, Monsanto poisoned those people for years and years and years. And this is not as big, but it looks to go as deep. You know, it could very much go as deep. I want to switch over to some positive news. Big news out of Chandler, big news out of Huntsville. Governor Kay Ivey was able to announce a big investment by Toyota, right?
She was. It's showing Huntsville, you know, is one of the fastest growing cities in Alabama. Their industry's booming right now. I really agree with her. She thinks that it's going to, they're investing $106 million into the industry. So hopefully it, you know, has a positive effect on the city.
Good job, don't you think, Beth? I mean,
Yeah, as long as they create the jobs they're supposed to create and they stick around and do it. I mean, I'm old and salty about all of these investments in private companies because look what the ThyssenKrupp did when Mobile,
Oh, yeah, they just cheated
they robbed us.
Well, now,
and so we've got to have some clawbacks.
That's what I was going to ask. Jack, it's a $106 million investment. I mean,
but that's by Toyota, not by the state.
Right.
Am I right?
I mean, yeah, it's Toyota.
Yeah,
okay, I thought it was the government giving them $106.
Yeah, and it's bringing 50 jobs.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Toyota can bring as much money as they want
A
to
couple
Alabama.
weeks ago, she had a whiskey company that announced they're going to.
Yes.
Wait, Governor Ivy is bringing a whiskey company to Alabama.
Well, she's not bringing it. It's coming, and she ain't fighting it.
She ain't fighting it. No, I figured it'd be a gin.
Ridge.
I figured it'd be a gin company knowing the governor.
But
okay.
I mean, it's already here. I mean, that's a Conecuh.
Right.
Y'all haven't tried the.
It's a Pike County recipe. It's an old stiller named Clyde May made this. Stiller, yeah.
It was actually rated one of the top 10 most iconic breakfast foods in Alabama, Conecuh sausage.
Oh, it's great. But I tell you, the Clyde May whiskey's good. They're going to move it to Troy and manufacture it over there. But this is a good thing for the state.
But
I think
it's the water from the Conecuh Ridge area, which runs
So now we're going to have our Conecuh Ridge whiskey and our Conecuh Ridge sausage.
It's not Conecuh Ridge sausage, it's Conecuh sausage.
Well, yes, I know, but Conecuh.
Which NECA of the Conecuh?
It's just, Conecuh's a fun word to say. I'm just
Before
looking
we
for
get
reasons.
bogged down, Chandler, you did a report this week on myths on the lottery. We got 30 seconds. Tell us a couple of myths.
Oh, well, the most common one is that it's a form of taxation. It absolutely is not a form of taxation. It's actually helping prevent to raise taxes. So people that think that, hopefully that'll change their opinion a little bit. People saying that underage gambling and addiction is going to increase. There's always the chance of that, but honestly, there's no greater chance of encountering someone that is poor and addicted to gambling than there is someone educated and not addicted to gambling.
And Beth, it's not, you are not more likely to get hit by lightning than to win the lottery.
In case you didn't know.
Right. Wait, so my odds of winning the lottery are better than getting struck by lightning?
Yes.
They're better.
Are we talking about even the scratch-offs, though? Because I'm good at scratch-offs. I win those all the time.
I don't know. Is it scratch-offs, too? Maybe it's just a big jackpot. We'll know if you get hit by lightning.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going
Right.
to keep buying my ticket every time I cross the state line.
Well, hopefully.
I'm all for it. Let's bring it
All
on.
right.
There we go.
Roll them bones, baby. All right, you've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.